They said the mine had been sealed since 1957, after the collapse that took 17 men and left nothing but echoing shafts of stone and death. You would think that would mean there would be no one wanting to ever venture back. But, as we all know, money changes people, and it certainly shortens memories. When it comes to those who are in desperate situations, money can change just about anything. Now, Grant DeMera is an individual that certainly isn't bold or one who stands his ground. He is more of a turn the other cheek rather than a fighter. Still, he is also broke. When a new drilling company came around looking for experienced miners, Grant's ears stood tall at the thought. They were willing to offer triple pay, which seemed too good to be true. Of course, he was going to be required to assist the exploratory crew. That meant going inside the now abandoned Stillwater Shaft. Everyone knew about the stories concerning that place. Still, when you need a paycheck, you need a damn paycheck. Grant DeMera seriously needed a payday. Yet, as he began that steady descent down into the darkness, he started to question his own sanity. His boots made contact with the metal of the lift cage, and when the door locked into place, he felt it was sealing his fate. He asked himself why in the hell he hadn't asked for more money. There were 6 of them in total. Not many at all. 4 were miners, 1 a surveyor, and the last, outside of himself, was a biogeologist, and I'll be damned, a woman. Savannah Monroe, known for being determined to finish a job. Grant had already summed her up. She was rather pretty, but given where they were all going, looks didn't even matter. It wasn't like they were going to go on a date. He noticed she didn't talk much, not to anyone. However, her eyes were always wandering, always watching. She didn't appear to be timid of the darkness engulfing them either. In fact, she seemed to relish in it. The descent seemed to go on forever, and all of them were becoming a little unnerved. Finally, reaching bottom, Grant noticed one of the miners checking his watch and asked him, "Man, how long had it taken?" "Nearly 20 minutes, the miner called back, walking away from the group. Grant was just glad the rattling of the cage was over. All the creaking of metal and rocking would have made anyone believe they were going to plunge to their death. What was worse now was the horrific odors. All of them smelled it, and the surveyor jokingly questioned if one of them had eaten something rotten earlier in the day. It wasn't a smell of rot or gaseous fumes. It was much worse. They all stayed silent, perhaps too scared to bring up what they were all obviously thinking. As they went deeper, the stronger the smell of bile filled the air around them. There was also the smell of something burning, making it quite difficult to breathe. "I thought this place was supposed to be empty," muttered Mason, walking a little ahead of Grant. He was another one of the miners, more experienced. No one answered him. Grant clicked on his helmet light, hoping to get a far better visual of his surroundings. They hadn't been in long before the realization hit all of them that it was far warmer than what an underground mine should be. Abnormally warm. There was something shimmering along the cave walls. The stones on the ground also had actual beads of moisture, it appeared, sitting atop them. It was just very unusual, and the geologist even mentioned in passing she'd never seen anything like it before. Not in a mine environment. If the extreme warmth, foul odors, and immense darkness weren't bad enough, what they stumbled upon next sent tension through the entire group. There were bones scattered around them. Savannah examined them closely, finding that they were not human, but they didn't appear to match any species she was aware of either. The rib cages were barrel-shaped, and the skulls, The skulls had odd dents, almost as if they'd been hammered in. There were also strange insignias along the walls in this area. They spiraled in different directions, not really appearing to be any form of language. Brian, one of the oldest of the miners, hesitated before kind of barreling out, "It has to be some kind of rodent." Everyone knew there was no way in hell it was from any kind of rodent. They had to have ventured 2 miles in when they came upon a more open cavern. Parts of the walls were eroded due to dampness and other defined reasons. Part of the top of the cavern had huge rocks that had almost looked like they'd been chipped or eroded and had fallen away. This area wasn't on any maps any of them had seen. In some places, it looked as if the rock itself had been defaced with roaring fire, like it had been burning for an infinite amount of time. There were no signs of any human ever having been there. Savannah was the first to come across the deep hole further in. She dropped a stone, listening intently for when it landed. No sound came back. It was like an endless abyss. Dr. Tennis sent a temperature probe down in a few feet, but it never touched bottom either. The temp read 110 when he pulled the probe back up. So they sent a sensor down to see if there were any signs of airflow. And there was. But it wasn't like a draft. It felt more like something actually alive and breathing. Some kind of organism, perhaps? But then Dr. Tennis sighed and stood. "It might just be my imagination, y'all. We have been down here a while now anyway." Savannah decided it would be a smart idea to send a drone down and see if they could pick up anything on the infrared camera. Mark was the best at operating the drone, so he sent it down. Everyone noticed how his hands shook as he moved the directional arm, guiding the drone deeper and deeper. They could barely make out the light from it any longer. There was a slight shift of movement below them, some sliding of rock they all heard, and as Mark prepared to bring the drone back up, it was as if it had just melted away. He could not get the controls to work, and then there was nothing. It was just gone. It was about that time, when they were all ready to pack up and go, that they heard it. It was guttural at first. Then the chattering started. It sent chills down their spines. "What the fuck?" Dr. Tennis muttered, stumbling back further from the opening. If they had thought everything through, they would have left long before thinking about it. The sounds became faster now, almost like in code. Looking around at one another, they knew that they were in a shitload of trouble. No one spoke. They reverted to using hand motions and forms of sign language. Just as they turned their backs and began to take faster steps away, every single one of their helmet lights cut off, and the lanterns encircling the cavern went out. This left them in blinding darkness. "Back up now, and fast," Grant somewhat whispered, and somewhat hissed the words out. It seemed it happened in mere seconds. Grant felt a rush of air go by him, the briefest hint of some life form in the blackness. Then the screams began, the blood-curdling screams. There was an awful tearing sound off to his left, but he had no idea what it was or who it was. He turned a little too fast, tripping over something solid on the ground and going down. His hands fell into something wet and pungent. Blood. It's blood, his mind screamed. He began crawling on the cavern floor. not even fully realizing he was doing it. Suddenly, the lanterns that hung in the area began flickering on and off. The horrifying scene the lights created would never leave Grant's mind. Body parts were spewed all around him, and he could not even recognize who was who any longer. 3 of them were still hanging in there. Hurt? Yes. He made it to the outside edge of the cavern, and when he turned around, he saw Savannah pulling herself towards him, her eyes reflecting the fear he was feeling himself. Turning slowly to his right, he witnessed the slow death of Mark. There was a jagged hole where once his windpipe had been. Mark fell to the ground, gurgling and choking on his own blood. A slow and agonizing death. Grant looked up, seeing it for the first time. Whatever it was. It clung to the ceiling with talons like those of an eagle. Multiple eyes encircled what one could only assume was a head. In that instant, in that tiny second, Grant knew they were never going to leave this place. It would become their tomb, and no one would ever find them. This whole time, it had been watching. This entire time, it had been stalking. Now, they had become its next meal if they did not escape.